versus movie. Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Movie versus Movie. Today, we are talking about the movies that have defined their genres. The romance, comedy genre, the heist genre. These are the specific ones we're talking about. But it's not just me, Nick, one of your hosts, but we also have your other host, Patrick, and an amazing guest. So, Patrick, what's new with you?
Wow, what is new with me? What's new with me is I watched two incredible movies this week. And honestly, though, I love both of these movies.
Yeah, they're so good.
I can't wait to get into it because I don't know which one I'm going to pick, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither. But maybe somebody to help convince us one way or the other is our guest, a star of the Boston comedy scene. You may have heard of her if you were in the Improv Boston orbit. Maybe you've been taking classes with Nova, one of her new projects. But we have the incomparable Whitney Hawkins here today. Whitney, how are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. These are both like big movies from when I was growing up, very formative. So I'm really excited to talk about them.
Yeah, and why don't we give, for the folks who don't know from the title of this episode, what movies are we talking about today?
We are talking about When Harry Met Sally and Ocean's 11.
Can I blow both of your minds with some connections between these movies right at the start? One being that the guy who plays Saul in Ocean's 11 is the dad of the director who directed When Harry Met Sally. And also, both of these movies have Casablanca references as core parts in them. So just saying that there's a little bit of connective tissue between these two. But yeah, I'm so excited to talk about both of these. Off mic, we were talking a little bit about which one we do first. What a hard choice. And we decided to start with When Harry Met Sally. So, Patrick, you're going to kind of get us going with the plot, but any general impressions off the top? I had not watched this movie in probably like 7 years. So what did you guys feel when you watched it? Whitney, you kind of came up with this a little bit by messaging me and being like, I just watched this for New Year's and I need to watch it again, or I need to talk about it. So
yeah,
what kind of inspired that in you?
Yeah, so I probably discovered this movie when I was like 14 or 15. So that was back in like the early 2000s. And just became obsessed with it. And like since then, it's my comfort movie. I watch it like over and over again. I think when I messaged you, I was like, I just watched it for the 47 millionth time. And I just want to talk about it. My partner and I were flying back from vacation, and we watched it on the flight back, and I'm sure the people around us were annoyed. I was just like saying the lines along with it. And it's just such a comforting movie that I think it's unique in how well it's aged.
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. And I was a weird teenage girl in that I hated rom-coms. Hated it. I was so obnoxious at sleepovers because they turn on like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And I was just like rolling on the floor going, ugh, terrible. But this one gets me every time.
It's such a, like, watching it now, such an indication how far we've strayed from the path in terms of rom-coms. Yeah. I think it suits the theme well. I feel like it's the platonic ideal, but there's also just so much stuff in it that I'm like, this is like, there's a reason it's good. We can get into it. The plane thing, I think these are both excellent plane movies.
Oh, for sure. Or party movies. So
yes,
good. Yeah.
Just have on in the background. Ocean's 11 is like my platonic ideal of a plane movie because I've seen it a million times.
Yeah.
Know all the beats. You can kind of pop in and out. And I feel like this one also fits that bill. Although this is only the second time I've watched it. I didn't watch it until I think during COVID was the first time I watched it. And I feel like even between then and now, I don't know. I feel it like it's it's kind of, I mean, it takes place over a lot of time, but it kind of feels like a movie about being in your 30s.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like,
Because we really moved past the 20s pretty quick.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, you can only buy Billy Crystal as in his 20s for so long. In
And
this
even
movie.
then, you don't really buy
That's
it.
why-
You're like,
yeah,
what is
that's
this
why-
40-year-old pretending to be a 20-year-old?
Yeah, and I mean, even when he was in his 20s, he looked like he was in his 40s.
Totally.
Like, that's just sort of his vibe. So, yeah.
One thing, because I watched a really great video essay about rom-coms, Whitney and Patrick. You both have sort of brought up this idea of like when Harry Met Sally set the mold and then everything has sort of failed to live up to it. And that is like very true in that the speech that he makes at the end has been done 1,000 different ways and all of them not as good. My sort of like, we'll talk about it after we go through the plot, but my idea sort of why that is that most rom-coms take place over the course of a week. And this one has a healthy like 10 years. And it's just, and a lot of the movie is actually, because I was doing a little research on this too, that is like the director and Billy Crystal, like they would sit up at night and just talk to each other on the phone and watch the same thing. You know what I mean? Like that was what they did. And that made it into the movie as sort of this like kind of semi-romantic sort of thing. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, because it's based in their friendship and the friendship blossoms into love, which is such a healthy, nice thing to watch rather than I'm going to like make you realize that you hate your job and want to give everything up to be with a man in a week.
Yeah, nobody's manipulating
Yeah.
anybody in this movie. It's just really from like true friendship and just feels so honest. Like, because Nora Ephron, who co-wrote it with Rob Reiner,
Mhm.
they were just really true friends and just had such like a big respect for each other. And so much of the movie comes from their actual experience.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, and you can just feel it. It just
Mhm.
feels so real.
Yeah.
And there's also believable growth from the characters too, because it takes place over an extended period of time, and you can like, yeah, it's very believable. There's no like, second act like grand misunderstanding where if only they'd communicated just right.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the tropes that you see in a lot of modern rom-coms that really just like kind of take you out of it, I feel like aren't in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, and going to your point about like the growth the characters go through, like Billy Crystal is such a piece of shit at the beginning of this movie. I was like, I hate this dude. And then I was able to move past it, but I was also like, wow, I do not remember him being such a shitty person at the beginning. But I also think that like this is one of those movies that will hit you different at different stages of life. Because like me as an early 20s person, maybe I would have been like, wow, what a truth teller, what a dynamic, interesting person. But at this point in my life, I was like, this guy's an asshole.
Well, yeah, I remember when I was a teenager watching it, and like Meg Ryan in the beginning, I was like, "Oh, she's so pretty and has like so many like opinions." And now I watch it, and I'm like, "What a twerp!"
Yeah, totally.
Like so pretentious. Like I bet you didn't have great sex with Sheldon.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should dive in because we're already chomping at the bit to talk about specific characters. So, Patrick, you wanna start us off?
Yeah. So the movie has this great meta structure of the older couples speaking about their relationship and how they met, like interspersed throughout. And my understanding is it's based on real stories, right? But not necessarily the actual couples speaking.
Yeah, I'm such a nerd about this. They really wanted it to be the real couples. Rob Reiner really wanted it to be real couples. I think his parents are very much like this. But they couldn't get them to tighten up the stories enough.
Yeah.
Like, because just like real couples, they were talking over each other and they were like, we can't get it the right length. So yeah, they were actors, but they wanted it different.
Yeah, it kind of like shows how badly Love Actually just sort of ripped off a bunch of other movies with the like airport scenes, which I would say is probably the best part of Love Actually, and kind of tricks you emotionally into thinking that what you just watched was more romantic than it was. But like in the same way that this happens, and I yeah, there was part of it where I was like, these stories feel written, right? But I was also like, these are great little character pieces.
Yes, incredible.
Okay, I can dive into the actual plot. So yeah, the movie starts in 1977. Harry Burns and Sally Albright are graduating from University of Chicago, and Harry is dating Sally's friend, and so they're both going to New York City. So they're riding together, but haven't met before. Sally's going to attend journalism school, and Harry has a job in New York. And so this is our first introduction to the characters, where we get this vast gulf between their personalities. It's like, you know, the complete extremes of like their personality traits that, you know, slowly like converge or, you know, love each other throughout. But yeah, Harry's absolutely obnoxious, like spitting grape seeds on the closed window.
Oh God, it's so gross.
When he spits those grape seeds and goes, I'll roll down the window, is I think one of the first big like guffaw laughs of the movie.
It is too, just what we talked about. I mean, I immediately clocked like this is a man in his 30s, probably 40s. And I think it makes him seem like more of an asshole, because if it was somebody who actually looked 22 and was just like aloof, you'd be like, oh, it's just a kid. But
yeah, if it was Timothy Chalamet.
You're like, this is a grown adult acting like this. But as they're driving, they start the conversation that kind of frames the whole movie, which is this idea of if men and women can be friends without sex getting in the way. And of course, Harry is on the side of absolutely not. They can't. You know, if a man's friends with a woman he finds attractive, it's immediately going to become about sex, and it can never be a real friendship. And Sally is, you know, pushing back against this.
Can I say that I think that this is the only part of the movie that I don't like as much, because I know that it kind of proves the point that he's wrong, because they are friends for like 10 years or whatever. But I think that it gives the false impression that he's right at the end when they get together. And like, I don't know if it's me just like sort of like towards like sort of that 80s masculinity of like what is like the gender politics of that, but it's the only part where I'm just sort of like, this just doesn't feel as good. I don't know if that's like a personal thing just to me, but like I don't know, I never have liked that framing.
Oh, it's terrible, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a horrible statement to make, because it's also impossible to refute.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's part of what makes Harry's character so unlikable in the beginning, is that like just making this broad sweeping statement of saying like men and women can't be friends.
Yeah.
You know,
because you
like,
can't prove a negative, right?
Yeah, you really can't like disprove or prove it. But I think it's so real. And like now we just call it the friend zone.
Yeah, right.
Like even though that is just such a misogynistic like way of looking at things. But I think that's what makes it so real. And probably a lot of guys, you know, even that I'm friends with and stuff now that are reasonable people are probably like, that's probably how I felt when I was 22.
Yeah. I think that specifically is a great point, that like this movie, and something I love about this movie, and one thing that I think that rom-coms do badly now, is that they don't shy away from showing these characters' flaws. You know what I mean? Like, these are not perfect characters that are just like, wow, we're watching these two people fall in love. They're like generally flawed people that continue to like crash into each other throughout their lives, which I think is so much more interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, and Sally in this one too, just the way she talks to this waitress, right? Like in the scene with ordering pie, like
she's such a jerk.
she's such a jerk about it. Like that pie probably just had like spit all over it. Like sure. Especially if it's this like 22-year-old like Farrah Fawcett looking girl, like I don't like they were probably around like Pittsburgh at this point, like that wouldn't fly anyway. Yeah. So it is just like these are very real people who are about to do something but haven't done anything yet, but they think they have.
Yeah.
So yeah, they stop at this diner, and this is kind of where this part of the story ends. Harry tells her that he finds her attractive, and flirts with her, and she calls him out for making a pass at her when he's dating her friend, and basically says she doesn't want to speak to him again, and they get to New York, part ways. And yeah,
but I just have to call in this scene is that all he has is like an army duffel bag and a baseball bat. Like, that's what he moved across country with.
Yeah.
Gets me every
Which, man, I will say, when I moved to Boston, I, as a point of pride, was like, I can fit everything I own into a garbage bag. And that's how I moved for like the first 2 apartments. And I was like, this is the way to live. This is the best way. So it is like a real like early 20s thing.
Relatable.
Love that.
Very relatable. No baseball bat though? Did you?
No baseball bat. If anything, that is the difference between me and Harry, is that I do not like sports.
That's the one difference.
Difference. Otherwise, same person.
But yeah, so then the movie just, starts to progress in time as we kind of watch their relationship grow. So the next meeting is 5 years later. They run into each other in an airport, or Sally's dating this suit named Joe, and Harry's engaged to be married, which is kind of surprising because you're like, this guy is kind of a scumbag. It's just shocking that he's getting married. And they talk on the plane. They see each other by the gate, and then he's behind her on the plane. And again, you're just like, oh my God, if you saw this guy in public, you'd just be like, Jesus Christ. Because he like starts the conversation with her, and then the other guy's like, oh, you know each other? Like, do you want to switch? And he's like, yeah, of course. And comes in.
And she's like, no.
Yeah. She's like, no, dear God. And like, he is so annoying physically too. Like, he is climbing over her chair essentially to talk to her. And again, like when they parted the first time, it was sort of like, I never want to see you again, for basically both of them. And then the fact that he has just totally blocked that out. And he's like, oh, I remember you. You were this woman that I traveled with. Yeah, it's so good. And also, going back to Whitney's original point about how Billy Crystal is not believable as a 20-year-old, they're like, 5 years have passed. We're moving along quick, which I also thought was really great.
Yeah.
And his hair, or the wigs they give him, just get curlier. Like, that seems to be the main thing. So
yes.
When he's 22, his hair is straight, and then it just gets curlier and curlier as the movie goes. And you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense.
And then her outfit in this too is just like Meg Ryan's hair in this is like a beast of its own, but she is just so coiffed. Like in this scene, she has the little like ascot thing, and like the tweed suit, and the like Peggy, what's that name? That really popular haircut from the 80s, that was just straightened to death, but straight but poofy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so, she's just trying so hard. You can just like feel it off of her.
Yeah, and also like throughout this movie, if nothing else, is an incredible fashion like movie. There's not a miss. Like every single outfit they're wearing is like, oh, I would wear that, or oh, I wish I could wear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I love that you're bringing that up because that was when I've done just like my nerd research on When Harry Met Sally. Just I've listened to and like watched so many things about it that a lot of the wardrobe was the actor's own clothes.
Ooh.
Like once
Wow.
they get to the part after this where they're being themselves is like Meg Ryan's own clothes and like Billy Crystal's own clothes.
So what you're telling me is that Billy Crystal owns maybe the hottest outfit that I've seen on a guy, which is like that sort of like light wash jeans with the white turtleneck sweater. I was like, holy shit, this is the greatest look I've ever seen.
It's back, baby.
It's
yeah.
It's come back around. That like fit
Yeah.
of jeans. I'm fully in that fit of jeans.
Oh yeah, I have so many high-waisted pleated pants now. Yeah, she's rocking
Mhm.
it.
I did just want to go back. I was looking at my notes. Possibly my favorite joke in the movie is back when they're in the diner and she's talking about how she had the day of the week underwear, and what was it? A boyfriend got suspicious because she didn't have Sunday,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Well, why didn't you have Sunday?" And she's like, "They don't make Sunday because of God."
Yeah, it's such a great joke. And he just sort of looks at her and is like, huh, okay.
It's such a great like non sequitur that like no additional. It's like just the right amount of specificity. Where
Yeah. And she just says it so seriously.
yeah.
She is
because of God.
she is so earnest in this movie.
Yeah.
Like all of the humor comes from how serious she takes basically everything, and she's
Mhm.
never trying to make a joke, whereas Billy Crystal's character is just always making a joke, and it's sort of that tension too, which is so great. So yeah, keep going.
I feel like we'll get to it, but I do though feel like the turning point. Yeah, this whole Billy Crystal has the upper hand. This conversation on the plane, she's like, "You said that thing about men and women," and he's like, "Oh, did I say that?"
Mhm.
Like he's gaslighting her constantly, like just that type of personality. I feel like
Yeah.
until the diner scene is the first time, and again, she plays it completely earnest, but it's like finally getting the upper hand on him in
Yeah.
like the biggest way. But
It's a great power shift.
Mhm.
But yeah, the plane conversation, also ends with like, "I don't like you. We're not going to be friends."
Yeah. And he's getting one of my favorite jokes in the movie is when he's like, I'm getting married. Like I have a fiance, I'm getting married. And she goes, that seems really optimistic. Which I thought was such a good read. Like, what a great comment for this
Yeah.
one guy that you're like, how is anybody going to live with this guy?
Yeah.
So good.
And Helen Helson, she's a lawyer. She's keeping her name,
Mhm.
right? Just like this. These are the facts you need to know about her.
Yep.
So good. That conversation also gave us the white man, like named the white man's overbite,
Mhm.
which I can't not think about at weddings and stuff these days.
Can you tell us? This is actually the first time I've heard this. So can you tell us what the white man's
Oh
overbite
yeah,
is?
that he was describing a date, I
Yeah.
think, where he's like, you go out, you do the white man's overbite.
Oh yeah.
Which is the biting the lip and doing
And
a little
shaking.
like shimmy. Which is just every wedding I go to, you have
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
clock it.
I do. I like the first chunk of this movie. I'm like, how much of this is just Billy Crystal's stand up that he's worked? Because like a lot of it
Yeah.
feels like structured. Like,
Yeah.
you ever think about the white man's overbite?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
there are a lot of
it,
monologues.
Yeah, and a lot of it was improvised. A pretty good amount of
Mhm.
it was improvised too.
Yeah.
I believe that. But yeah, and then so the next jump ahead is another 5 years, and I will say the Wikipedia summary gets the broad strokes, but it misses where some of the individual scenes slot in. So feel free to interrupt me if I miss, like, because as you get later in the movie too, it really, I mean, it's a series of conversations. Like every scene is really just a conversation in a different setting, which is great. but I don't have the exact order in front of me. So if I miss something, please jump in. But the next is
real
go
quick,
ahead.
Patrick, because you bring up a great point, which when I was watching it, I was like, this is kind of like a perfect improv set. You know what I mean? Because no scene takes a huge long time unless it's like the scene where he goes over to comfort her after we'll get there. But all these different things, there are moments that are like movie scenes, but a lot of it feels sort of montagey in like the improv sense, where you're kind of going in, you're demonstrating relationship and people really like that, and you're making people laugh, and then you kind of hit them later. But like, I don't know if that was just me, but I was watching it and I was like, wow, this is this is just really good character work from two great improvisers.
Yeah.
And there's a whole improv structure or opening called When Harry Met I mean, that's based on the couple when Harry, for those that aren't in the improv world,
who are not inducted into the cult.
There's this, people will do this in improv sets where you start a set or scenes by having two characters come out and sit down and talk about their relationship and how they met. And then, it's a quick 1 or 2 minute thing. And then you go into scenes based on that. But,
yeah. So should we talk about those 2-person scenes a little bit too, since we don't have those broken out?
Yeah, we definitely can.
Yeah, I feel like any of the ones that are worth talking about.
Those couple scenes are just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Just like such a range of these old married couples and how they act toward each other.
Yeah, there's one where it's like the old guy's like, yeah, I was married, like I was engaged to her sister, and then I saw her, and I was like, I'm gonna marry her, and now we've been married for like 100 years, and then she just kind of nods, and that was it. It's so good.
It's so good, and you can tell this guy's just like such a jerk, and she's like, whatever, he's my husband.
I love my favorite line out of them, which I honestly can't remember exactly which one it comes from, but my favorite line is, I knew the way you know about a good melon.
Yes.
That is one of my favorites, because the woman in this couple is just telling the whole story. And then, just with like being at summer camp, she saw this guy walking across the room, but guys were always walking across the room to talk to Maxine, her friend. And then she was like, but he wanted to talk to me. And he said, and then he just says his line.
Yeah.
He knows his line. And then, I knew the way you know about a good melon. And that was one that was just like, oh, they have told this exact story like 18 times a year for the past 40 years. And he just knows, like, when she pauses here, this is when I say my line. And it's just so cute. It's just so sweet.
And it's great too, because they're like not all relationships that are like classic, like, oh, we were courting for 6 months and I fell deeply in love. Sometimes it's as weird as like, I knew that, like, a good melon. Like, so like they're all very like out, kind of off the beaten path, like love stories, but they all really resonate.
Yeah, or like the one, we were together and then we were apart and we were married multiple times and then came back together later in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me, there's this like Instagram interview thing that was making the rounds a little while ago of this woman. And it was like, what is the most like kismet moment of your entire life? And she was like, when my husband died in the plane crash. And she's like, oh my God, because like your love ended? And she's like, no, because then I could marry the man I was in love with for 10 years. And it's like, wow, okay. Yep, that makes sense.
Anyway, not everything is perfect and like the way you think it's gonna be.
Yeah.
I love the couple that had all these like parting of the ways and then coming back together, and they lived on the same block, but then he moved to Chicago and we were 4 floors apart. And that one is just an absolute ballet of timing, where they're talking over each other, but then the other one starts talking, and then the other one starts talking, and it's just the unexpected nature of that one is just so good, and that like love and life isn't like a linear way, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there it's all beautiful. And I
Yeah.
don't, I mean, having only seen it 2 times, I haven't paid attention. I wasn't able to pay attention enough to know, like, clock if there's any like intentionality. I mean, I'm sure they structured him in an intentional way. It's not, there's no like direct obvious parallels to the movie, but I am curious like how they decided how to order them. Obviously, you get the ending with Harry and Sally telling
Mhm.
their version, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a I don't know. I feel like it was the master stroke of the movie, kind of like
Yeah.
Yeah.
little cherry
Because
on
it kind
top.
of like identifies or exemplifies different aspects of their relationship, like the splitting up and coming back together, and the sort of like, no, you're the one, because in their relationship, they're constantly sort of talking to each other about other people that have failed them in some way when it comes to romance, and then by the end, it we find out that they're the one for each other. But like, so yeah, like all of these interviews sort of highlight an aspect of their relationship, but there is no one-to-one comparison, which is really nice.
Right. Yeah, I really loved that they added the couple from I don't think we know exactly where they're from, but they're an Asian couple
Mm,
and had an arranged marriage. And I think it has a really beautiful story of like trust or like faith in the universe kind of
yeah.
thing, where and like we don't really actually know what this marriage is like behind closed doors. We don't really even get to hear like the woman's perspective on it, but
Mhm.
it's just like I saw her and she looked nice
Yeah.
and now we've been married for 50 years, you know, and it's just sort of this is going to be what it's going to be because you choose to do it.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful one. That's just those like different themes that come through.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to jump back into the
Yeah.
main
Where were we?
thread?
Were we at the bookstore, or
So
where
yeah,
were we?
the bookstore, and I think once you kind of get to like I guess what would be like present day,
Mhm.
like this last shift, I feel like the movie really like shifts into high gear
Yeah.
because you just
Can we talk about the Carrie Fisher of it all
I
and
know. What a joy to see her.
how perfect she is in this movie?
Oh, she's so sad though.
She's so sad, but also
Yeah.
so real.
Yeah.
Like we all have that friend who just like knows she's making a mistake, but cannot for the life of her stop making that mistake. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
she's
because like,
also she's a matchmaker by profession, right? She has
yeah.
a Rolodex, and so
Yeah.
it's like the matchmaker who can't find love, self
Ugh,
sabotaging.
and
that
we'll get to it,
Rolodex.
but like the scene where they all go out as a double date. I know it's at the end of this block, so we can wait, but like that's perfect. I really liked that sort of dynamic there, because it's like so good of like, oh, I actually like 30 seconds into this date know that we have nothing in common. That I
Yeah.
do not like you, but this other person I'm kind of like vibing with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the scene, just at the button of that scene of them getting into the taxi together is great.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, where they're
Um,
like, so should we? And then they're already getting in the taxi and they're like, bye. So good.
But yeah, so we get from the plane, we get another 5-year jump, and they run to each other in a bookstore. And this is where they've both Sally and Joe have broken up, and Helen has left Harry. And so he's kind of, this is kind of Harry's, his ego has taken a shot. And I love, like, this is where I think talking about the divorce is the first time he kind of actually like talks about his feelings some. And you get the scene of him and Bruno Kirby, Jess,
Yes.
his friend, at the baseball game with the conversation during the wave, which is a great bit of
Yeah.
just having a conversation about your divorce in the middle of the wave.
Yeah, what great physical comedy of like being like, yeah, I don't know if I'll ever find love again. Wave.
I mean, honestly, one of my favorite moves in improv is to be doing something very silly while being very sad.
Yeah.
It is a clutch move. I recommend anybody use it. And this is such a great depiction of that.
Yeah.
And also like intimacy between male friends. Like
Mhm.
so beautiful. There's not even that many. I think every movie should be showing that now, and I don't
Yeah.
think we are. So this movie was like way ahead of its time in
Yeah,
terms
because
of
like
like men should talk about their feelings with each other.
male comradeship, I guess, in movies, especially during this era, is all like militaristic or
Yeah.
militarized, and that like it's usually, you know, good job, Hutch, we just cracked the case and killed the criminal, like high five, freeze frame. But this actually has like I'm going through something and I need someone to talk to, which is like, wow, what a great thing. These people are real humans that we can actually relate with.
Yeah. And like, I love in that scene, she's talking about, Harry's talking about Helen saying, like, I don't think I ever loved you. And Jess goes, ooh, that's harsh. And Harry tries to move past it. And Jess is like, no, I'm a writer. I know dialogue. That's particularly harsh. She's like, which is just another way of being like, don't minimize your feelings.
Yeah.
Like, you're allowed. It's so good. It's so supportive.
I also love Patrick, like you put it in a great way of like he's had his ego has taken a shot, and the first thing we see from him is him like being a creep at the bookstore, sort of like where in the past he would have just like barged in, oh, what are you reading, like throw it, like be an absolute jackass. But life has sort of tamped him down in a way where he's just sort of he's reading a book. I forget if it's upside down or not. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. And he's like reading, but also like looking up through his eyelashes at Sally. And I just think that was like such a good reintroduction of him, because it's like, oh, something has changed a little bit. And she clocks it too. She's like, I think that's the guy that like I drove with across like the country with from college, but like I haven't seen him in like 5 years.
Oh, and she gives that little dig to Marie, to Carrie Fisher, of like, you'd like him, he's married.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, brutal.
Yeah. So yeah, they from this encounter, they like their friendship actually does blossom, and they start spending time together. They have their late night conversations, watching Casablanca. I would say maybe my favorite scene of the movie, in a movie with a lot of great scenes, is when they go out to dinner and Meg Ryan has the monologue about her relationship with Joe, and talking about just being together and not having kids, and they can just fly to Rome or they can do it on the kitchen floor. And then she's like, and we never flew to Rome and we never did it on the kitchen floor. And that was, I think, when I was like, all right, this movie is really like cooking now. And
yeah.
Just
God,
a cold, hard Mexican ceramic tile.
Yeah. And it's so good because she follows up on it. They like hit that point again later where she was like, when Joe gets remarried, we'll talk about it, but like she has that line where she's like, he didn't it's not that he didn't want to get married, he just didn't want to marry me.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, that's so brutal. And then like, but we go back to this kids bit, and you kind of see it in other relationships that are like real life relationships, like the John Mulaney thing, where he was very publicly anti-child for like 5 to 10 years, and then is with a new woman and they have 2 kids within like 3 years. So it's like, man, it's like a real thing that people have to deal with, of like, especially if you've been with someone for a long time and you're like, oh, it just didn't work out, we're different people. And then you see them acting in like a completely different way with a different person. And you're like, oh no, that's just who they were with me. You know what I mean? Like it's I loved that so much. It was like, what a brutal like thing to realize.
Well, I think that's a huge part for for Sally's character too. Like Patrick, you said that Harry's character had taken this big blow, like to his worldview, but Sally was someone who was like, I graduated the University of Chicago. Now I'm going to go to Columbia Journalism School. I'm going to be a journalist. Like probably had the next 10 years of her life mapped out. And then she spent 5 years with a perfect guy and it didn't work out. So like, I think she has also had this like kind of different life than she had expected. And it's taken her out of like, it's taken off her blinders a little bit too, that like, oh, life isn't just going to be what I plan.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's part of why I was like, this is a movie about being in your 30s, because at least for me personally, and I turned 30 last year, and peers and people that I know, I feel like we're at the age, or I am, of like first divorces and a lot of these relationships that started in college or right after college, like that kind of thing. People are either figuring that out and getting married and getting engaged, or things are coming to an end and stuff, and it just like throws a lot of that stuff into question. And it's like, yeah, and people, again, like people, this takes place over 10 years after graduating college, and just like people change a lot
Mm-hmm.
in their 20s into their 30s.
I cannot, like, it blows my mind when people who get married when they're like 22 or 23. It is always such a huge shock to me when they last like really any amount of time. But for me, I'm like, when I was 22, my worldview was so intensely different from how I feel about things now, that like, if you were with me then, you would be you would be dating a completely different person. And
Yeah.
so it's just like such a crazy thing because I do think, to your point, Patrick, of like when you hit your 30s, and then from what I hear, when you hit your 40s, it's sort of like a gradual slide into like a comfort with who you are. And so like throughout your 30s and then into your 40s, you just become more kind of relaxed and more you're like unashamedly yourself. So there's like, it's easier to survive a relationship in those decades, but in your 20s, it's such a moment of reconstruction that like, oh God.
Yeah, I think it's like at least like when I grew up, I'm almost 40 now. And when I was growing up, there was just this like idea that once you graduate college, you're like fully cooked.
Yeah.
And like then you're gonna pick your path and stay on that path forever. And that's just so not true. Like, I mean, I came out when I was 32,
Yeah.
33, right? Like I'm a totally different person than I
Yeah.
was when I was 22 and like just graduating college. Um, and I'm glad for that too, right? Like there's been a meme kind of floating around on social media right now that's like how lucky I am that things didn't work out the way I thought they would.
Yeah.
Because I think back on like all these relationships and stuff that I had where I was like, oh, I never would have found comedy. I probably never would have come out. I probably, all this kind of stuff.
One thing one thing
Yeah.
that I'll say to that kind of point with Harry's character, and to your point, Patrick, of like how the movie gets cooking when they're in their 30s, I think Harry is detestable in his 20s, but as soon as we see him going through this divorce, this breakup, and you see him sort of like doing this, you're like, oh, he's like a real sensitive person who has real feelings. But not only that, but Whitney, what you were saying with Sally and how she's like regimented her life, they are perfect for each other, because Harry is such an easygoing sort of like, he is constantly challenging that impulse to structure your life and live to like some other person's standards to her, but she is demanding of him to actually like back up what he says with actual real action. And like, it's just perfect. It's like, wow, these are great characters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I read there was I think a full book that came out about like the making of this movie. And Sally is very much based on Nora Ephron. Is an incredible screenwriter, former journalist. And uh very much based on her, like that's how she orders. Apparently she and Rob Reiner went out to lunch when they were talking about this, and she orders like everything on the side, and he's like, that's in the movie.
Yeah.
Because she is just like so opinionated about things and really regimented. And Rob Reiner is a lot more like Harry, where he's easygoing but gets trapped in his feelings a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So like these characters just like are real people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Harry needs like connection so much too. Like he's this kind of, aloof asshole a little bit, but he so needs people to connect to, and like he's such a social creature.
Yeah.
Um But yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
So like you said, there's like a whole bunch of these montage scenes. Are there any that really stand out to you in this section of where they're like getting to know each other? Because like the only image that I really remember is when they're in like her new apartment, maybe his new apartment, and they're
Oh,
in
that
those
big,
awesome.
beautiful one with the floor to ceiling windows.
Yeah.
Insane apartment.
Insane
He had
apartment.
been like, he was a lawyer / like political advisor.
Yeah.
Is the story.
He's
So
making
he
good
had money.
bucks. But
I will say him being a lawyer is such a perfect, like, it makes so much sense.
But you do get, you kind of, the fall montage of them in New York is obviously iconic. And I feel like you get both the like best fits and the beautiful scenery of them like walking through Central Park. And then the scene where they go to the Met and you have the big wall of windows and the leaves behind there. And he does the pecan pie bit, the voice. I will say I went to the Met in January for the first time. And it was a really gray, kind of rainy day, so you didn't have the beautiful vista like they did. But the lighting coming through that window was so like perfect and diffuse that I took my LinkedIn headshots there.
Hey, look at that!
My LinkedIn headshot in the room where they did the pecan pie bit and Harry Met Sally.
Nice.
I
That's your
love
like
that.
3-word sort of like job description under your headshot. Harry, Sally, foliage.
I would be proud to partake of your pecan pie. I love that scene so hard. That scene actually was mostly improvised.
Wow.
Like when he starts talking in that like wacky accent. And there's a part where he says, but I would be proud to partake of your pecan pie. And she laughs and like looks off to the right.
Mm-hmm.
It's because she was looking at Rob Reiner to be like, we're still going? Okay.
Love that.
She was like, what's happening?
Yeah.
But it's such a perfect scene. And I think what's perfect about that scene too, that's another time he asks her out.
Mm-hmm.
Is you know, he says, yeah, would you like to go to dinner with me tonight?
Mm-hmm.
And she says like, no, I have a date. And he is like, okay. Right. And that's where I think it like really clarifies for me that even though he has hit on her, he's asked her to dinner, like different ways, right? He has never chased her.
Yeah.
Which
is the point about the whole like the formula of this is that like people thought he was chasing her because he's just friends with her.
He's not chasing her. He even says like, oh cool, you should wear a skirt, you look really good in skirts. He suddenly is just like, okay, we're friends. I just like punched my microphone. I got too excited. So no, he's like, he suddenly just becomes a friend and is like, oh, you should do this. You should do that.
So, and then you kind of from this, we lead into the first New Year's kiss where they're at this party and you can like sense there's a clear connection that feels like something might happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they go outside and have this awkward kiss where like, I think thinking like what we know about Harry as a character in relationships, like again, you would think he would pursue this more if it was this situation of him like harboring this attraction and like holding it back. But it is like, it's not that. It's still, they're still like not really sure.
Yeah, and there's also like a really interesting dynamic in the middle point here, like where they are both trying to that like the basis of their friendship is both of us are going through really hard romantic things right now, and we want to like kind of be there for each other and take care of each other through this pretty difficult moment. And I think it's also reflected because they have this awkward kiss. It's not fireworks the way that maybe they were sort of like, let's try this. Wasn't fireworks. And then like the first thing that they do is like, let me set you up with my friend. They're like, I love my friend. You'll love my friend.
That scene is so interesting to me. I'm so glad you brought it up because it's such like a small scene in the movie that first New Year's. But it's the first time the like rom in the rom-com like really comes in. Even though he's like asked her out and stuff before, but like when they're dancing together and they kind of turn and you see it on Sally's face too. Oh, they're dancing cheek to cheek. And like you see this like, oh, is this something? Like, and you can kind of almost like feel those butterflies that they're probably feeling. And it's like, oh, what is this?
They're like, am I drunk, or is this just like a little like is that something else? It's such a great moment. It's too bad it doesn't work out that time, but instead we get other funny bits.
No, and the thing is, it's like they weren't ready for it.
Yeah,
either.
That's true.
So like this connects with me to my fiance, my betrothed, and we've been friends for 10 years. We started dating about 6 years ago, but we were friends for a good 4 years before that, doing improv, where you form bonds very quickly. They were one of my very best friends. And it was that thing of like, things kind of happen slowly because you want to be precious with it. I didn't want to lose them in any way, but you do have these just like little moments where like, oh, your hands touch in a different way and things like that. And it shows that so beautifully.
This is part 2 of my friend zone rant that I started earlier. The thing that bugs me so much about the discourse around this and everything is that if you actually cared for that person, being their friend for a long period of time is actually like a winning outcome. And I think that, again, what future rom-coms sort of have failed in is that they haven't seen the relationship as the goal. They've seen sort of a sexual act or sort of like the kiss or the marriage as the goal. And so it has to, like, I think that's where a lot of these other movies have lost their way, because in this movie, these two people are friends, and they're funny people, comedy. And then the romance is like, oh, I actually really care about you deeply. And if that's as a friend, that's compelling to watch. And if that's as a will they, won't they lover, that's also compelling to watch. And so at no point in this movie does it feel like, oh man, Harry stuck in the friend zone. It's like, what are we talking about? That's not a thing.
And a huge thing for me and Sam, my partner, is that I had when we started dating, I had so many people say like, oh, did they have a crush on you for a long time? Like, were you two like pining for each other kind of thing? And I was like, no, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I've been someone's manic pixie dream girl before, and that doesn't work out, right? Because then they get to understand that you're a human, and it just doesn't work. Like, these are two people who know each other inside and out, and that's why it works. They see each other as a whole person, not as someone they had a crush on.
Yeah.
Because when you have a crush on someone, you're not seeing them as like a fully formed human.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Crush is an idealized kind of vision of someone. But yeah. Okay. I'm going to keep going through the plot because we still.
We have a lot to say. I'm so sorry.
There's so much to say about this.
There's so much to say about this movie, and it's all worth saying. But I'll keep us going. We talked, a little bit about the double date scene already,
and that's where this is when that happens, right? Because they try to set each other up. I thought that happened earlier, so I apologize for talking about it, but.
But the double date scene blossoms into Marie and Jess's relationship as they get engaged, and so then we kind of get the progression of that until leading up to the scene where they finally sleep together. But
that double date scene is so beautiful. Just like them trying to set up like conversation starters for the intended couples, and then just being like, whatever.
And then him just being like, I wrote that article. And
yes.
That was so great. And she's like, what? And it's like, oh, these people were meant to be together.
I love Jess and Marie as a couple. Like they both took the like funny best friend trope and just ran with it in such a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when they're moving in together, it's just so funny.
And it is like, again, these set up so many, or this movie kind, fits the formula of a rom-com in certain ways, but like I think it's the characters feel really real. Like a lot of times the funny best friend is kind of just like a cartoon, and it's maybe a little over. They'll hire a hot funny comedian. It's
Or
like
Pete
the
Davidson
characters,
lately, which is weird.
yeah. But it's like they're
Pete
real.
Davidson, classic funny friend.
And the movie's just well written. Like the comedy of the movie is just like, these are well written jokes, and a lot of it comes from good performers improvising, but there's just a lot of in the structure, in the script of the movie too, that's just like, you can't, I think other movies maybe overcompensate with funny people trying to riff and
Yeah.
do bits and stuff that
Yeah.
doesn't land in the same way.
Yeah, and visually going off of like the use of the form, like there a lot of like funny actors when you look at it is actually just like sort of loosely recorded improv sets where people are just kind of talking to each other. You have like a shot, reverse shot kind of set up, and visually it's not super interesting. But in these shots, you always have something kind of interesting happening where it comes to like whether it's the staging of like putting them at weird places in the table so they have to like lean across other people to talk to the person that they want to talk about, or like when they leave, and Whitney already mentioned it, and they're like getting into the cab, that kind of, it feels almost like a cartoon smash cut of like, yeah, I guess we can all go home. You guys want to? And they're like, see ya, getting into a car. It's like, great. What a great moment. But like visually, this film is like so compelling as well, which I think a lot of future rom-coms kind of drop the ball on as well, because they think, oh, we'll just like put these two hot actors together and just film them. But a lot of this is actually just like really cool staging and brilliant sort of scene design as well. I just wanted to throw that in there because I feel like we never talk about the scene design when it comes to comedies, but like, man, comedies have been really fucking up for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, and like also it's the friend's apartment of it all too, where like what, Jess is a writer and Maria is a matchmaker, and they have this like Manhattan brownstone. Like
Yeah.
who can afford that? But it does visually just look, it's aspirational. It's like Nancy Meyers
Yeah.
esque, right? Of it's just like, oh, that's the kind of cozy, like opulent life that we want. That we want to live, like that rom-com, like sci-fi element of like, a writer could never afford this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But we can dream.
We can. But yeah, so Bree and Jess get together, get engaged, and then the one night Sally calls Harry crying. She's found out that Joe, her ex, is getting married.
Yeah.
And so Harry goes over to comfort her, and one thing leads to another, and they end up sleeping together. And it's immediately clear that, Harry feels, well, it's been set up earlier that he does not like to snuggle and stay after. But it's also clear that he's, deeply uncomfortable just about that this happened, whereas she's kind of more like, happy to be sleeping there, and he like sneaks out early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I really love about this depiction too is not like, it's not her fault or anything. It's not it totally is his fault, but it's not really malicious. It's not like, I got what I wanted, I'm leaving. You can tell that it's fear based. Like he still has a talk with her where he's like, yeah, let's get lunch sometime. Great, okay, bye. and then you can tell like, oh, this guy is so fucking scared of
He's
what has just
terrified.
happened. Yeah, and it's like you don't see that a whole lot in this way. A lot of like the trope of the guy sneaking out early morning or whatever is because he's a huge dickhead
Right.
and only wanted the conquest of sex or whatever. This is like so different in that it's like, oh no, I may have stumbled into a really deep, meaningful relationship and I'm so scared of it.
And that it's his best friend
Yeah.
too. So again, that like risk of like, did this just blow up one of the best relationships in my life?
And Patrick, you were talking about how like Harry is a character that desperately needs connection. We only ever see him connecting with two people, and that is Jess and Sally. And so like think about making a decision that might destroy 50% of your meaningful relationships. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it does really come from like, so that the scene when he comes over, first of all, Meg Ryan is hilarious in that scene. And just
She's
to
not
go,
sexy at all, just like snotting all over the floor and like coughing. It's so
and
good.
on his sweater and
Yeah.
like everything, and also just the storyline of Meg Ryan's hair. She has the like beautiful natural wave, and this time it's just like straight up so curly. Like she's just you can really like just read the movie through her hair.
Yeah.
And she's just so upset and so funny with the like, and I'm gonna be 40.
Yeah.
Like in
It's like-
8 years.
Yeah, for real.
It's so good. But then if you've been this planner forever and this has like totally thrown off your worldview and your timeline, she's so upset. And then also he doesn't just like, to use a terrible phrase, like go in for the kill kind of thing. They have some of very tender, sexy smooches.
Yeah.
Like in that moment where you can see it's more just like he's like, I love this person, and they're
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
I don't know
so
if it was
good.
I'm sorry for interrupting, Whitney, but like
No, not at
I
all.
so agree. But like this moment, I feel like is so interesting to read because you can see the next scene happening in this scene.
Yeah.
Like because she kind of initiates the kisses, and when like the first one, he's kind of like leaning back with his neck a little bit, and it's like a really interesting thing of like it's not that he doesn't want to kiss this person, which because he does. And it's consensual and they have, you know, a full physical relationship. But it's also like what's happening is like reading on his face. And it's so good. It's just such a complex moment, which is nice.
Yeah. And they had just had this fight. Can't believe we didn't talk about the wagon wheel coffee table. Speaking of like visual set dressing, the wagon wheel coffee table is freaking everything.
It's so horrifying. It's such a terrible table.
If I could find that anywhere, I would buy it at the drop of a hat, just because I love this movie so much. But yeah, they have this huge fight where they talk about like how he's fucking everything with a pulse and kind of judges her for not having quote unquote like moved on, which in his definition is just having had sex with someone else. So then you realize that too, that like that's his context as like this is he will be the first person that she has had sex with like since this guy who's getting married.
Totally.
Whereas he's just been fucking around all over the place, but like hasn't actually like we've never even seen any of these women, like except for the one lady at the baby fish mouth party. We got to see her, but other than that, it's like these have all just been like faceless sort of people.
All right, Patrick, I'm gonna give you the power to mute our mics because we are so close to the ending here, and then we can talk about all the rest of this stuff, but we have a little bit more plot to get through. So take us home, baby.
Basically, yeah, they have sex. Things are weird between them. They go to Jess and Marie's wedding. They get in this big fight there. right as they're like coming through the kitchen having this big loud argument. That's very some funny comedy with them yelling in the kitchen. They come out, they're giving the speech of like, and our best friends Harry and Sally, and they're like, oh hi. And then it kind of cuts from there. It's like left up in the air. And I don't on the Wikipedia, it just jumps to the New Year's Eve party. Is there anything actually in between?
There's kind of like a Whitney, maybe you remember a little bit more clear, but I kind of remember a montage of like Harry walking sadly around the city.
Yeah, it's very Sally is like getting on with her life, but doing some like single girl struggle. Like the year before, he had helped her get her Christmas tree, and this year she's doing it by herself, which is much harder. There is a great scene of him leaving voicemails or like on her answering machine, using the karaoke machine that we got to see earlier. So yeah, it's a lot of him trying to apologize and maintain a friendship, but she's just like totally shutting it, just in total self-preservation mode. Which is so interesting given that, the morning after scene, like you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and then this leads up to the second New Year's party where Sally's there with Jess and Marie. Harry's at home watching it on TV. Sally's kind of like, I don't know, I think I'm just going to go home. And then Harry decides to go take a walk around the city and kind of has this epiphany. And again, a classic rom-com trope, starts running through the city to find the woman that he loves. And right as Sally's about to leave, he gets there. She's like, what do you do? You're just here because you're lonely. You don't actually want to see me. And then, of course, he gives the big speech and lists all the reasons that he loves her. And it's beautiful. And they kiss. And then we see them talking about how they got married 3 months later.
And they're one of the couples.
They're one of the couples.
Yeah.
And that's
So
the
good.
movie. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're obviously going to compare these movies after we do Ocean's 11, but like anything, Patrick, you had the Herculean task of driving us to the end of the plot, but any sort of sentiments now that you got us there?
No, I think I've kind of said. It was just I was very touched by the end, even knowing what was coming. It got to me emotionally, and it's a beautiful movie. We somehow I don't know if I should even say this. Somehow we didn't talk about the Cat's Deli scene, which is insane.
Yeah, we skipped it completely.
I was just thinking about that.
I will say I haven't watched the Super Bowl ad, and I think it's a crime that they did that. Yeah. I hate all the like nostalgia referential Super Bowl ads. It's upsetting that they did that, but a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
This is another like fun facts about it. The sweater that she's wearing in that scene is actually Billy Crystal's, because she was really nervous to do the scene. So he let her wear her sweater. And she ended up having to do it like 18 times, like a ton of times, because they shot it from so many different angles. And then the woman who gives the perfect "I'll have what she's having" is Rob Reiner's mother, so Estelle Reiner, where he was like, "There's only one person in the world that can deliver this line accurately."
Yeah,
beautiful.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's a great. I would say it's not my favorite scene in the movie, though. I know it's like one of like the most famous scene, other than maybe the monologue. But like, it's a great scene. But this movie is full of great scenes. Yeah. It's so good. Patrick, one question I have, and Whitney, I don't know. Do you have a Letterboxd?
I do. Okay,
so Alice turns to me last night, because we were watching Ocean's 11. Alice is my fiance. And she was like, Patrick rated both of these 5 stars, which is, I mean, like, what a great, because like, I also love both of these movies. But Patrick, what got it into that 5-star territory for you? And then we'll kind of do the same thing on the other one.
I don't know. I think again, it's just kind of that je ne sais quoi, just like watching it. and just like experiencing the movie. I got to the end and I was like, this is a 5. I think I had given it 4.5 before. And again, the end, the speech and them coming together at the end just hit me in an emotional spot that, maybe the timing was just right. And I was like, yeah, this is a perfect movie. I think the prompt too. I'm like, it's for what it's setting out to do in the genre that it's doing. I'm like, you can't get any better than this. So.
Yeah. Whitney,
Yeah.
do you, off the top of your head, I assume probably a 5-star movie for you?
Oh yeah, this is possibly my favorite movie ever. Like definitely top 3.
Nice.
It's again, perfect movie. Accomplished exactly what it meant to accomplish, and not only that, like in a way that has held up for 30 years.
Yeah.
And
I would love, sorry for cutting you off, but of that hang on to the holding up bit, because I think both of these movies like kind of freakily do this super well, in that like, because I've watched some like 2010 to 2015 movies recently, just rewatching to be like, oh, I remember liking that. They are atrocious. Like we were going through something as a nation. They're really bad. And this one completely dodges that. Ocean's 11 really does as well. But yeah, anyway, just remember that because I want to talk about that in depth.
Yes. Yeah. Me too. For sure. It holds up. And one thing is like, this movie barely passes the Bechdel test, right? Like, I think it's pretty much when she says, like, I'm going home, you'll never get a cab, is like the only real exchange between women that's not about men. But the thing is, I think when you think about just like femininity or like intimacy in a movie, it doesn't even just like have to be between women, because like Billy Crystal, Harry, and Jess have so much like intimacy together. You never feel like, oh, this is a dude movie.
Yeah, but they also don't talk about other men, really. It's just talking about Sally or, like they are talking about women whenever they talk. And then when Sally is talking to her friends, it's always about the men because like that's the central relationship. But like to your point about the Bechdel test, like the reason why the Bechdel test is so important is because men often talk about other stuff in movies and women only talk about men. So it's kind of nice to see that like equity across the gender lines in this one, even way back in like, whenever it was made.
Exactly. Yeah, it feels like a movie that's so like truly just romantic from every angle, and shows women being self-preserving and independent, and shows men that need connection, and this different level of intimacy. So I think it's just so like beautifully gender balanced as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you can tell like the respect and friendship between Nora Ephron and Rob Reiner. That this was clearly like a man and a woman at the top of their games who respected each other and collaborated in a really true sense of the word.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like one voice. It feels like very collaborative. All right, I'm going to take us through Ocean's 11. I'm going to do this probably pretty quick. Sorry.
We don't have to get into the nitty gritty of the all the twists and turns of the plot, but
I will start this bit by saying, Alice, to your point, Patrick, of like not getting into the nitty gritty. Alice and I were watching it last night, and Alice was like, how is this? Like, what is happening? Everything's going wrong, blah, blah. And I was like, Alice, it's all part of the plan. And that's sort of like the mantra of the movie is like, no, all going to plan. It's all part of the plan. And it just works, It's because, it has to work that way. But it is a movie where nothing really matters. It's just seeing how it all kind of comes together, which is amazing.
These are these characters don't have families. Like they don't have pasts. Yeah. Like there is zero baggage in this movie.
Except very important, the only relationship is Danny and Tess. Which frames the whole thing. But from the opening frame, it's all part of the plan. As soon as George Clooney steps into the screen, the plan is in his mind and in place, and that's
Yeah.
the whole movie is the heist. Like there's no, again, you get this thing later of like, well, it's really about the girl, but it's not like, you don't get this first act where they're like, we're giving you like exposition, we're letting you meet these characters, we want you to know like why they're doing it. They're just like, no, they do heists because they have to, and they can't not do heists.
Yeah, and it's also like whereas When Harry Met Sally is a character study of two people and deeply diving into them as they traverse 10 12 years, this movie is like these, like you said, like both of you said, no past, no futures, anything. All they are highly skilled professionals that come in and do everything almost perfectly and then leave. It's amazing. Anyway, and like, dear listener, if you're listening to this and being like, oh, obviously they didn't like this movie as much or whatever, that's not true. This is a great movie. This is a great experience.
I watched this movie so much as a kid, and it was because we had our little, like, we'd go on vacation in the summers, and we had this on VHS. This was like the end of VHS tapes, and it was the only one we ever took. So I've watched it 1,000 times.
I've seen this so many times. That's why it's like perfect plane movie. Again, you can just like sit back and enjoy the ride.
Can I also say
big sick movie for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, this movie is, I think, better the second time.
Yes.
I think it is a movie that actually gets better the more you watch it because you pull more out of it. And anyway, let's get into it. So Danny Ocean, master criminal. We don't know this yet. He is going before the parole board at his prison where he is serving a sentence. And they are saying, why should we let you out? He's giving a lot of very manicured answers that are like, oh, there are no lies in there. But he is not answering the question, which I thought was such a great character intro. And it ends this little scene with them being like, and of course you won't be able to leave the state. And then it's like him in LA where his friend is learning or is teaching card games to the cast of the WB's big hits in the early 2000s.
WB stars.
Yeah,
So
it's
good.
so great. I love Topher Grace in this, where he's just like the huge dickhead.
They're
It's
so
good.
dumb.
Yeah.
I love that Joshua Jackson can't deal the cards correctly. Like, he keeps
And
going
also-
right instead of left.
Did you catch when George Clooney goes like, so you like, what do you think? Like, is it hard to make the jump from TV to movies? And they're like, nah, it's fine. It's like George Clooney is the only person that has made that jump at this table. So great. Rusty Ryan, the person who's teaching them all cards, is Brad Pitt, who is never not eating or drinking something in this entire movie, which I think is an amazing character choice.
Yeah.
But they sort of get together, and Rusty is Brad Pitt's character's name, and Rusty's like, so you have a plan, what is it? And Danny Ocean, George Clooney, starts kind of walking him through, though we, the audience, do not get a full idea. All we know is that he wants to hit 3 casinos at once by going and stealing out of the cage that they all share, that this is this big vault.
Also, I must bring up, because this is one of my biggest themes, especially through rewatching the movie, is everyone is such a hunk in this movie.
Oh my God.
I mean, we are
Smoke
at
show.
peak Clooney, Pitt, Damon
Mhm.
hunkiness. Don Cheadle is still gorgeous. But like really peak Clooney, Pitt, Damon.
And
I will. Oh, sorry, Patrick. Keep
I was
going.
just gonna say everyone in this. I mean, Bernie Mac, R.I.P. Love Bernie Mac in
R.I.P.
this. Elliot Gould as
What a
Reuben.
stud muffin.
Oh my
I've
god!
got
Elliot
when
Gould
he
as
is
Reuben
in that
is the
robe and his shorts and his
Yeah.
Jewish medallion. Ugh.
Not one. He has like 7 gold chains on, with one with like the Star of David.
Yeah.
You say call it a robe. I would call it a kimono.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's incredible. He's always puffing on a cigar, but sometimes a cigar, but it's at the end of one of those cigarette holders from the 20s, which I think is great. But I will also say Bernie Mac at the top of his game in this
So
movie.
good.
So good. What a
Mhm.
loss. Oh, God, he's
I
amazing.
know.
But yeah, sorry, Patrick, keep going.
No, just the the idea of you're getting bits and pieces. Like you always have enough to feel like you know enough of what's going on to follow the plot, but they're obviously withholding stuff from you. And it's like you don't care. You're like, I don't need to know. The part when Rusty lists off, I was trying to find the list of it, but he's like, we're going to need this. And like he lists the type of people they're all going to get. And they all.
And also, yeah, not even the type of people, but also the cons that they're going to do.
Yes.
And they all have specific names. It really reminds me of John Wick, where there's like this whole like system and like a very professional, like sort of jargony way that all the assassins talk about the stuff that they do and like the coins. That is all basically stolen from Ocean's 11, it turns out, because Ocean's 11 has that in spades where they're like, yeah, we're going to need a whoopsie-doo and at least two like crazy Bonnies or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like such a great, like so fun because it gives this like, it's an illusion, but it works so well in movies whenever they do it. I love it where they create the illusion that there is so much like lore and depth of this weird group of people in the world and the profession that they inhabit that it just becomes massively interesting from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit that they're conning us. Like when Rusty goes to pick up Basher, like, and kind of cons the police and is like, you know, just where's Griggs? Go find him, right?
Yeah.
And the guy's like, okay, like that's basically what they're doing to us. Is like, yeah, we're a flim flam, Ella Fitzgerald. Yep, okay, got it.
The characters are also controlling. Like they have dominion over time and continuity that like doesn't, because that scene, they're like Rusty and Danny are talking and they're talking about Basher and they're like, oh, he's gotten into a little bit of trouble. We're gonna have to like help him out.
Yeah.
And then you cut, like, it doesn't make any logical sense that they're talking about that he got into trouble. Then you see him getting into trouble, but they're actually there to like,
they are omnipotent, but it's in a way that is believable because like, you know, if I was to make an argument for that scene, it's that like Danny or Rusty is like, yeah, he might be indisposed because like of a bad choice. And it's like, oh, the thing he's talking about is that he's working with some unprofessional hacks and he's obviously going to get caught. But like you said, it makes absolutely no sense how Brad Pitt knows that or how he could get there that fast to stop him being arrested.
And that also, I don't care. Right? Watching that movie, I'm not trying to pick it apart because I'm like, Brad Pitt's gorgeous, like Don Cheadle's beautiful and has this ridiculous accent. Like,
it's so bad.
I'm just letting it wash over me. Like, whatever.
Don Cheadle doing the accent and
it's so
Cockney
bad.
Rhyming slang, and it's so egregious, and I don't care.
Yeah, it's not only is it egregious, it's like actively painful to hear. But like when I was a kid, I was like, well, obviously he's from the UK.
I thought the same. I was like, that's a British actor, clearly. Yeah.
I will say in 2001, we were much less sophisticated in the States we didn't have Ted Lasso, where we were like, oh, that person sounds like they're from South London versus Manchester. Like, no one knew.
Yeah.
We just had Michael Caine. That was it. So, yeah, this was believable in 2001.
Yeah, and so they're sort of gathering up all of these people, and we can kind of just like blow through this because it is just like character vignettes of each of these people that you go and you meet Ruben, who's the guy who's backing the whole thing, and he has an issue with Terry Benedict, who we get introduced to, which is like the evil casino owner. And then it goes to, like you said, like they find Basher and, you know, he slips him stuff to make a bomb and they escape, and like it just goes from thing to thing and it doesn't matter at all. Like they are just introducing these characters and making us like each and every one of them.
Yeah. They're like, look at this hunk. Look at that hunk. Look at like Scott Conn hunk. Like,
the Mormon twins.
Hunks.
Like, whatever you feel about Casey Affleck, both of those guys are so good in these movies. Like when they're doing the RC car versus the actual car, and like any of the scenes where they get in a fight, it's like, oh, the Mormon twins' job on this crew is to get in very public brotherly spats that are hella annoying. And they just do that the whole movie.
The line, I'm gonna drop you like third period French,
Yeah.
was said throughout my high school for like all 4 years. And I think
amazing.
every guy tried to pretend that they made up that line.
That's
It's
great.
just too good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we just run through the ones we haven't hit from the crew?
Absolutely.
We had Danny and Rusty, basically top two
Yep.
masterminds. Bernie Mac is Frank, the dealer.
Yep.
Elliot Gould is Ruben.
Yep.
Then the brothers. Livingston Dell, the anxious hacker.
Yeah. He's so good. And
He's
not
so
in
sweaty.
He's not in the, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. He is not in the starring like box. I can't find him anywhere.
Yeah,
That's
he's
wild.
in the order of recruitment. Eddie
Yeah.
Jemison.
Eddie Jemison's the actor. Livingston Dell. And then you have the amazing Yen, who's the acrobat. I love that it's implied that he understands English but speaks Mandarin, I assume, but Rusty understands Mandarin, and so we'll just like respond to him.
I love that. I love just this, like, because I don't think it's ever even stated. We just buy that Rusty understands Mandarin.
Yeah, you're like, of course. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah, when he's just like, oh yeah, no, tunneling won't work.
Yeah. It's so good. And also like, so we meet the amazing Yen, who's just like an acrobat, but also in this criminal world, I guess. The guy who's the techie is in a mob van and is like so stressed that he's kind of fried his nerves. And so they're like, is he going to be okay? Bernie Mac is Bernie Mac. And him, when he gets transferred from Reno, where he's dealing cards, to Las Vegas, and he's just like, because he has the little handkerchief. Bernie Mac in this movie is the greatest, greatest single acting performance. Every single time he's just hamming it up. He's having a good time. It's so fun. This movie is fun. God.
It's a romp. It's a true romp.
The whole, just throughout. And it looks so good. The music is incredible.
Yeah,
like it's
this acid jazz.
The cinematography, the editing, like it's just cool. It created like a visual language that I think a lot of movies mimic and try to ape, and I don't think they quite get there.
Yeah, and like at this time, like early 2000s, late 90s, men's fashion was so boring, right? Like this was the height of like the Gap. Like if you watch Friends, you're like, why are they just all in gray and khaki? But this was like, Brad Pitt has the shiniest shirts you've ever seen. Clooney's rocking tuxedos. Like Don Cheadle's characters dressed so cool the whole time. Like
they have color. Like Bernie Mac has that red like suits that he wears. So good.
Oh my God, it's so good. So it's like we had Matt Damon's character that was supposed to be that like little gray man.
Yeah.
So he was holding down what 2001 fashion for men actually looked like.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are like flamboyant and interesting, and it's just so good to see.
Which is great character-wise, because Matt Damon's character, who we haven't said yet, but he is essentially a very famous criminal's son. And so Danny Ocean is going there to like recruit him as sort of like the extra. Because they also have a great scene where they're like, 10 ought to do it, right?
Yeah.
You don't think 10 will do it? Yeah, I'll get another person. Okay, I'll go get another person. It's like so good. It's just like really good stuff, good dialogue. And so they go in and they recruit Matt Damon, who's sort of a pickpocket / small-time criminal, and this is going to be his first big job. But let's just talk over what the general con is, because we sort of are talking about it like everyone has seen this movie, which probably everyone has. But essentially, they are going to go to the Bellagio and run a confidence scheme that gets them into the vault and then steal all of the money from the Bellagio, the Mirage, and the MGM Grand, which all use the same cage. And the reason why that is because Tess, Danny's ex-wife, is going out with Terry Benedict, who is the casino owner of those 3 hotels. Also, can I just say, like, let's be frank, these guys are not like, blue collar heroes, but it does feel good to watch a movie that's just like, fuck rich people. It does. It's like, these are Robin Hoods. They are stealing from this rich asshole and they are taking the money for themselves, and it's fine,
Oh, Andy Garcia in this villainous hunk.
Yeah.
He understood the assignment. Like, he is just so unlikable in this. Like, it really makes you feel zero sympathy for him.
Yeah, just the seething rage under the surface the whole time. And you get obviously like the great denouement at the end of them recording him saying that he would trade Tess for the money. But
Yeah.
the great thing is like Ocean's 13. I don't know if I've ever actually seen Ocean's 12. I think I probably did like once, but it's been a while.
Ocean's 12 is okay. Ocean's 13, I think, is better. And what you're about to say, I 100% agree with. So say it.
Well, it's just, they're like, let's just go back to the well. We're going to knock off, or we're going to fuck over Terry Benedict, and we're going to do it. We're not actually going to steal the money. We're just going to make everyone else in the casino win a ton of money at his
Well, no, it's not Terry Benedict. Remember, Terry Benedict is in the
Al
scheme.
Pacino.
Yeah, but it's Al Pacino.
Right. Oh my God, sorry.
It's amazing. Al Pacino as like a coked out like casino owner was amazing.
So I worked at a place called Frankie's Fun Park in high school, which had go-karts.
So a child casino?
Yes, a child casino. In my dream, because I learned I didn't work in the arcade, I worked at go-karts, but there was an arcade and they were like arcade technicians. And what I learned is that a lot of the arcade games that are chance based, like the one where the light goes around and you have to time it, technically it's not chance based, but they are just like casino games, but they have settings that like set the likelihood that you can actually win it.
Mm-hmm.
And they would turn them up for like holidays and stuff, so more people would win. So I had a dream of Ocean's 13ing Frankie's Fun Park, where you just like rig all the games to win a bunch, and kids are just going crazy getting tickets. But
which Patrick just gave the full heist outline of the third movie. That is basically what they do, which is great. Anyway, but yeah, so back to this. They are starting to do this con. They're building like a full replica of the Bellagio vault to practice in. They're doing all this like high tech sort of stuff. They like have, all these scenes of just people doing their craft. They're part of the con. And it's just really satisfying to watch people be good at what they do. Linus almost gets caught because he leaves his like old ass, like cell phone thing in the place where he was breaking into. But yeah, the thing that happens that I have since I was a kid been confused about, so maybe you guys can help me, is that then Danny goes into the Bellagio and meets with Tess. And actually before this, Matt Damon is being tasked with like following Terry Benedict, so they have his schedule like down. And he's like, and he always meets this really hot woman. It's Julia Roberts, who's Tess, and she comes down the thing. And then Rusty's like, fuck, like I know that person. This whole thing that Danny is doing is because of her. But then towards the end, it kind of is like, Danny was always like, this part of it was always known to Rusty, and Danny is always going to be part of the end game. Everything is part of this grander scheme that Danny has. But like Rusty has that whole scene where he's like yelling at Danny in private, where they're like, what the fuck? Like, you can't be part of this con. You owe these other guys to get the money that you've promised them out of this con. And so it's, for me, I was like, okay, so what is it? Are they omnipotent and everything is going according to plan? Or is this like this one weird thing where they need to put it in, but then they kind of undo it, like retcon it later on in the movie?
I think they aren't in private. They're at least in front of Linus when they fight. So I think it's that Linus has to think that Danny's really out.
Yeah,
because
that makes sense.
They need to force Linus into the role where he has to play the part, and they have to like give him the confidence. I mean, this is all a very contrived explanation.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, but yes, this makes sense. This is solving this problem for me. Can I just say, so we can kind of skip a little bit of this. Danny goes to this dinner with Tess. gets seen by Terry Benedict and then gets kicked out of the hotel. And then they have this thing where Danny and Rusty are fighting about this in front of Linus. Linus then takes up the mantle of having to pull this confidence scheme to Terry Benedict by pretending to be this sort of like weaselly Nevada Gaming Commission official. Can I just say, Matt Damon has completely fucked up his career, and he should have just done like weird character parts because he is so good at this role. Like this, like him playing the thing when Bernie Mac, when Bernie Mac is like cracker, and then he's like, they start fighting, and then he turns to the Terry Benedict is like, you know, sir, that like us at the gaming commission, we smile upon colored, and then it's like, and then they all just start fighting. It's like, how well played is it? It's just so good.
I mean, this was like, this was before Matt Damon got like this huge ego when back when he was just like an excellent writer and actor.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was very, reminded me of The Talented Mr. Ripley. Which he is so good in. You're right. He's a really, really good weirdo.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's kind of it's like pre-born Matt Damon when he was not. Yeah, he wasn't like he became an action star in that, and it was like kind of surprising. People are like, Matt Damon, like as an action star, and I feel like that kind of, which I love the Bourne movies, also watched like a million times growing up, but I do think that kind of maybe switched the flip, or flip the switch on his career.
Switch the flip.
And was a little based on like the white splaining in this scene too, was a little foretelling of some other things that would go on in Matt Damon's career later. But it was well played, because even to a 2001 crowd, you're like, oh, he's doing a bad job. Like that's not how you talk to Bernie Mac.
And like them together, it's like. But the other thing about this movie that I just love is that even if you're an anxious person like myself, it encourages you from the beginning to be like, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay.
They got
Just relax
this.
it. Yeah, they got this. They are really good at what they do. And it's so comforting. Even when they're in the scene, you're just like, oh, this is great. Like, because you know they're friends. They're doing this perfectly. They're getting Terry Benedict. And the only anxiety in the whole movie is this going according to plan? And then it always is, yes, it is going according to plan.
Even when you think it's not. It's just, I also loved, just on a bigger picture, like this is a thrilling movie that has action, and there are technically guns, but like the movies that get made today, any movie, even the rom-coms today, everyone always has fucking guns, and they're always like a spy or a secret agent. Like this movie has no one like showing how to like take apart a gun and being like, I'm actually like a super, like of all the experts in the movie, none of them are like, I'm the gun guy.
They don't use violence at all.
Yeah.
You know, they really don't.
Except for like
it's great.
George Clooney getting punched by the guy and then being like, oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't supposed to hit
sorry.
you.
He's like, God damn it, Basher. It's okay.
Yeah, I think they really held true, because like the original of this was the Rat Pack, was like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr. So I think they really held true to that. Like they were gentlemen scoundrels. Yeah. Right? Like they weren't like true villains. They were rascals. Yeah. They weren't like totally womanizers. They were flirts. Kind of thing. So it was they towed that line really well.
And like they're criminals, but like George Clooney steps out of prison and immediately puts on a tuxedo. Like they don't belong.
Exactly. That's what he was brought to prison in, you know what I mean? So they continue doing the heist. They commence the heist. Everything is kind of going well. Saul, who is a really interesting character. I like Saul quite a bit. He's basically the like an actor who goes in and is another confidence man type people, but he is like the oldest of all of them and is the most experienced. but also is like he got out because his health isn't doing so well, and they really make a big deal of that. But then his whole role in the scam is to like have a health event in the cage with Terry Benedict, which I think is great. But yeah, everything's kind of going okay until Basher is like, oh shit, the earthquake that just happened recently, or like the drilling that they were doing in the sewers, actually was the thing that I was gonna do to fuck up the security system. We have to figure something else out. And so they have to go and steal an EMP device that looks like a bomb from like some sort of like sci-fi movie. It's like a big tank of water with like a Tesla coil in it. It's so good.
It's in the movie, like, for as I guess like quote unquote grounded as it is, there are these like there's definitely some fantasy with the gadgets and stuff in it, but it's like just enough to still be believable.
Yeah, it's sort of like it definitely has some of the DNA from like old James Bond movies where there's like weirdo gadgets that are used and like, oh, they're perfect, but it's like sort of that too.
The part where Sam and I were cracking up was like when they go to recruit Elliot Gould, and he's like, these security systems, they have cameras, they have vaults, they have watches, they have timers. And we were like, watches?
Yeah, it's like, it's very fun. It's
watches and timers.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. At the end of the movie, when the phone rings in Tessa's pocket, she goes, I don't have a cell phone. And I was like,
crazy. Yeah.
It was just like, but it is, I mean, I think a lot of filmmakers talk about this. They're like, it's so hard to make a movie where iPhones exist. Like,
Can I also say I totally missed this in our Harry Met Sally discussion, but I also think it kind of holds true for this too, where I'm just like, man, what I would give to live in that sort of pace world where it's like, you know, you call someone on landlines, you're like talking to them in bed and watching the same TV on cable. And in this, it's sort of like, you know, they're doing all this stuff together in person because they can't communicate well otherwise. And it's just like, oh man, I miss that part of humanity.
But everyone was so bored, Nick. Where did they get their dopamine hits? They couldn't get
exactly.
They'd have to watch an entire movie.
Who wants to be able to think in complete sentences? So they do the EMP, they steal it. Linus almost gets caught. The acrobat's hand gets caught in the van.
That's the part I still can't. When Yen's bandage gets stuck, I was still freaking out.
Yeah, it's like, oh, things are not going to plan. So they're like, okay, but everything kind of gets settled. They go and continue in the heist, and they're basically taking down the power. And Basher is triggering this EMP, but he has this. Apparently, it was improvised too. I think a great choice as an actor, where he's holding the button and then he like slowly kind of like turns away and like covers his genitals because he's like, I have no idea what this is pumping out, which I think is so funny. And they take down Las Vegas, the Strip's power, and everything comes back up. The boxers that were happening because it was a fight night, like that is chaos. Everything is chaos. People are trying to rob the casino on the floor, trying to steal money. And then the actual heist happens where they all go down into George Clooney reveals, oh, hey, I was actually always part of the scam. We were just kind of testing you, which makes no sense, but that's fine. And so Linus and Danny Ocean go down the vault and they find all the money. And what you were saying, Whitney, where he has his hand, the bandage gets trapped in the vault door when he's setting all the explosives to break it open. And there's this great scene where he's like clicks it and then nothing happens. And they're like, what the fuck? And they're like, click, 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 click. He gets his hand out and like leaves the door where the explosions are happening. And then Linus is like, did you check the batteries? It's just such a stupid, like.
That is full on just my dad using a remote. Yeah. Like, click, click, like hitting it and like shaking it, being like, what's wrong with this thing? And then my brother like yelling at him.
It's very funny. So good. They go in and it is revealed because then you have Rusty calling Terry Benedict and saying like, we're robbing you right now, and has a great like the drum, the jazz is happening, and he's like, okay, if like this takes longer than 20 seconds, we'll blow the money and we'll blow the money in the vault. But there's this whole like kind of scheme that is revealed to the audience, and you think that this is the actual plan, where half of the money is left in the vault and half the money gets taken out with the robbers, and you're like, oh, so they're only ever stealing half of the money. That's so smart. Turns out that they're stealing all the money, but they had filmed all of this beforehand so that Terry would think that they had already left when they hadn't, and they were the SWAT team that went in to steal, like to stop them from stealing the money. None of it makes a lot of sense, but it's really good.
But do we care?
No. It's great. It's great. And so Benedict sort of dismisses the SWAT team. He's angry, and then he goes to Danny, where Danny is like supposedly being beat up because he caught him in the casino again by Basher, who's this like 7 foot tall hulking guy who turns out to just like, yeah, my wife's pregnant again, and like I'm looking for some extra money. He's just like a friend of Danny's, which is great. And he's getting beat. Danny Ocean is getting beat up with finger quotes there, and also like, this is my big part of the movie where I'm like, fuck this movie a little bit, where they then have Tess watching on some camera feeds this final conversation between Danny and the casino owner. And he's essentially like, if you give up Tess, I'll get your money back. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. Take Tess. I want my money. And then he's like, okay, well, give me 24 hours and I'll find out who pulled the job. And I was like, fuck you. He knows immediately that you did it. Like, you literally say, like, what happened, Benedict? You get robbed? It's like, come on. He would immediately pull out a gun and shoot you in the head.
Yeah. If this was a different Andy Garcia movie, George Clooney would just be dead. Yeah.
So funny. But yeah, then it's just like... Danny goes back to prison for violating his parole. Everyone gets away with the money. There's that scene in front of the Bellagio fountains where they're all just like, we did a good job. And then they all start leaving one by one. And then at the end of the movie, Rusty is picking Danny up from prison. Tess is in the car. Everything has worked out, but they have a tail from the casino that is tailing Danny, indicating future adventures, and that is Ocean's 11. So now let's dive in, because I just want to get the plot out of the way so we can really talk about this. This movie is nuts. It makes zero sense and is still one of the most like satisfying movies. It's like eating your favorite sandwich. You're like, wow, this is great from first bite to end.
Yeah, it just moves. It has a rhythm to it that it just keeps moving, where you're like, well, that didn't really make sense, but I don't have time to think about it. But I get, like, it's got a visual language that is enough to understand, and there's a ton of show don't tell with like early stuff in the exposition. It's just like a tight, it's weird, it's like 2 hours long, so it's not, but it feels just like really tight.
That's what I was gonna say. That's such a good point, that it moves at a good clip, but it never feels rushed. Right, like especially in the beginning, there's like very long scenes, like the dialogue's kind of slow, but like even that move of Brad Pitt constantly like eating and drinking, it conveys that he needs stimulate. He's relaxed, but he needs like stimulation. Like he's like a consumer. And he gets also bored so quickly.
Yeah, that's it. But also it's like this thing of like, they can't rush any of these scenes because these people don't rush. They're meticulous. Right. They do everything purposefully. And so that the movie has to be like that too. And like you were talking, Patrick, about the visual language, like that visual language was so successful that it's now just sort of like known as like the Soderbergh, like pictures sort of thing, because it is really compelling and it really makes like a lot of sense, and it keeps you very visually entertained. But it's like a magic trick. Like you'll have 3 separate pictures on screen, each showing something slightly different, but they're all related. Oh, it turns out that the thing that actually was happening, you get revealed later in a different picture. And it's like, oh, so like like you said earlier on, like we are being conned by the filmmakers and these actors, but it's like so satisfying. Yeah, it's so good.
I think on like a larger note, it's like Steven Soderbergh is someone. This movie is so stylish and specific, but I really respect him as an artist because he just pumps out movies constantly, and they're like pretty wildly different. And he'll like shoot a movie on an iPhone and put it out, and then do like, you know, he's done a ton of movies, and I've not seen nearly enough of them, but like there's types of artists and directors that kind of keep making the same movie, and that
Yeah.
can be really fascinating because you're like there's something they're like really wrestling with, and I love that, but I think I relate more to like the Soderbergh style of just like I'm interested in this right now. I'm going to make a movie
Yeah.
about professional basketball agents. I'm going to make like whatever, a remake of the Tarkovsky movie Solaris with like George Clooney. It's just like all over the place, and I'm like, I don't know. I respect that as an artist.
Yeah.
As for him as an artist, I mean, not me as
Yeah.
an artist.
I think there's something to that. This just felt like they had fun making this movie.
Yeah. It just like oozes out of every frame of like, man, I bet that these people are all best friends and they had a blast doing this.
Yeah.
Which is weird because like Whitney, we've seen other movies like anything that Adam Sandler does with his production company, where literally those are all friends that go on these like exotic locales. And they've said so in interviews where they're like, yeah, it's basically just vacation where we get paid.
Yeah.
And those movies don't feel like this. Like it is so well captured. I don't know how he did it really. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just really incredible. And I think it also like, I mean, everybody's had a fantasy of being part of a heist, right? Like after this movie, I think it just also is that feeling of like collaborate, like we were saying before with like Nora Ephron and Rob Reiner, this like true collaboration and like respecting people for being good at something.
Yeah.
That's another like improv move that is so important, is it can be to stay in your lane and respect that other people like know what's going on. And I think like that's something that gives that vibe of like everyone's able to do their own thing at 1,000% and like respect each other while we're doing it.
Yeah.
And like, who knows if this will have the same life as When Harry Met Sally, which I would say even, you know, now is like referenced and emulated in a lot of movies. This movie 25 years later is still so like it is crystal meth. It is distilled down to like this pure form, and it is like it's crazy. And when you think about how other movies emulate this, they take the style of music, they take the way that people interact with each other. They'll like, you son of a bitch, I'm in. Like that whole joke of like how these movies are structured are because this movie did it so perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's interesting like comparing these movies too, because they're obviously not the first movie in this genre, and like Whitney said, this is a remake of a movie, and so it's playing with a lot of ideas and genres that already exist, but they like became this kind of declination, like defining moment within those genres, like Nick, that you said, that's just like still people are still just like trying to do. I mean, even Steven Soderbergh basically, he did the sequels, but then like he made Logan Lucky,
Yeah.
which is just Ocean's 11 in West Virginia. It's a great, if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. It's just like redneck Ocean's 11 where they rob Talladega Motor Speedway. But it's and it also has like kind of baffling accents, but it's Southern accents from like Adam Driver and Channing Tatum.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
And what both of these movies are also just like everyone in them, it's like career defining.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like these, it's crazy. Like to be in any of these movies, I bet all of them were like that made the next 5 years of my career, because everyone was just like, that was such a great outing, you know? But let's talk a little bit about, since we're kind of coming to the end here, let's talk a little bit about the actual category of like defining the genre, because if it just comes down to straight, like which movie is better, I would be super hard pressed to go between them, because while I think like When Harry Met Sally is a more complex movie character wise, Ocean's 11 is sort of the perfect version of its genre. And so it's sort of like, man, these movies, both of them are the versions that everyone tries to remake and all the things. Like, man, how many rom-coms did we all have to sit through with, like, I don't know, who's the guy who was in 300? Gerard Butler.
Oh, Gerard Butler and Katherine Heigl.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Like all of this stuff, like we had to sit through trash because of that movie, but it was because it was so good and so successful that even just like slightly imitating it and getting 90% of it wrong was enough for it to be a successful movie. So like, these are two great genre definers. They kind of encapsulate the formula. They made the formula. How are you guys thinking about trying to choose between these two? It's crazy to think about them. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's I don't know. I think Ocean's 11 is maybe more specifically emulated, where When Harry Met Sally is more like trying to capture this kind of like, you know, you don't get, I guess there's just more of a visual style and like you said, the soundtrack and stuff to like pull from, where When Harry Met Sally, it's harder to, there is a formula to it, but it's, you know, it's harder to replicate that. You can make an entertaining heist movie that apes Ocean's 11, you know, without the same level of performances and stuff, but you can still get some juice out of it, where I do feel like When Harry Met Sally really is like almost some more like personal work, like we talked about, that maybe has more of something to say than Ocean's. I don't know if Ocean's 11 has anything it's trying to say really hard, other than like, isn't this fun?
Yeah, I don't think that Ocean's 11 is trying to say anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's I was looking because I was like, oh, this came out in 2001, like obviously pre 9/11 movie. It actually came out after 9/11, but obviously was made before, and does kind of have that late 90s like kind of end of history of just like, we're just having a good time, right? We're just stealing money. There's not really any like,
there are no consequences. Literally,
no, like,
Julia
stakes.
Roberts has the line somewhere that's like, you know, all those people whose money you steal, Danny, well, they get made whole again by the insurance companies. You left me. Who's going to make me whole again, Danny? And I was sort of like, that is not how robbery works.
Like, right. I do think attempts to make these movies now, even like Logan Lucky, are like, there's going to be a little more to, you know, we're going to try to have something to say. The people who are doing this, they have a reason for doing it, and maybe that's tied to something that happened in real life, like the financial crisis, or like parts of America that have been impoverished. And so it's like, this is just purely vibes of like, no, everyone just does heists because they like doing heists.
Yeah, because they're good at it.
This is such a hard question to ask, because again, When Harry Met Sally is like top 2 favorite movies. I'll just say it's my favorite movie. But if we're talking about genre, I do think like Ocean's 11 is sort of like the epitome of its genre. There are 2 things I want to say about it, though. First of all, Julia Roberts was like the biggest movie star in the world at this time, and they gave her about 7 lines.
Yeah.
That's bad.
And
there's only 2 women characters, one of whom is a stripper who is like in it for 2 seconds, and Julia Roberts.
I am so glad you brought that up, Nick.
Yeah.
Because I am campaigning for justice for Charmaine.
Yeah, Charmaine.
Because she was part of this heist.
And doesn't get
He
paid.
stole that security guard's badge, and
Uh-huh.
Rusty just gives her like a couple $100 for it. Where's
know.
her
Fucked up.
$10 million? I just really want to see Charmaine get her payday. She deserved it. This movie should be called Ocean's 12, and then they knock back everything else.
Yeah.
It was part of the game.
Cascading.
Yeah.
Justice
I
for
totally
Charmaine.
agree. Alice and I were like, because like you said earlier around like both of these movies aging really well, there was only one point in Ocean's 11 where we were like, wait a second, does that age well? And it's with the joke that Charmaine does where he's like, Rusty's like, hey, say hi to your mom for me. And she's like, say hi yourself. She's going to be on in 5 minutes. And he kind of has like this look like, huh, and then walks away. And I was like, I don't think that that's like offensive, but is that just like, what is the joke there? There really isn't a joke.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like vibes, I guess.
This guy is like a non sequitur of like, yeah, it's in the family.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
a funny line.
Yeah, or that like LOL, like a 40-year-old could still be a dancer. Like,
Yeah, that's literally what Alice and
the
I were thinking.
joke.
It's like, is that the joke? Is that there's an old like,
Yeah.
you know,
and as a
sex worker or
38-year-old,
dancer?
I could still be a dancer.
Whitney's like,
I could
"Fuck
have a
you,
daughter who's a
Brad
stripper
Pitt."
and be a stripper myself. Take that, Soderbergh.
Yeah,
I will
very true.
Speaking of Julia Roberts and Soderbergh blind spots, I have never seen Aaron Brockovich, which I'm very upset by because my aunt is childhood friends with the real Aaron Brockovich.
That's
Whoa,
amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I definitely need to watch that. But I feel like also justice for Julia Roberts. Yeah, to watch a movie that
Mhm.
she
Yeah.
actually
Mhm.
gets more to do. But
And they
It
kind of
was
do.
cute in the credits. They put an introducing Julia
Yeah.
Roberts, which
I-
was
yeah.
a big joke.
I always love that, a little joke in the credits of like, yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and like in the second movie, they kind of like are like, we heard a lot about that. Why don't we give her a little more to do? So she's like in the heist or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. But like, and also like what they are stealing is kind of her, which is, you know, the whole thing. Anyway,
I'm gonna drop a hammer because I was honestly expecting this to go a certain way, and it doesn't seem like it's going that way. So I'm gonna put my cards in for When Harry Met Sally because I was just, as we've said, I think it's a movie that has more to say, and it got me in the feelings a little bit more than obviously I love Ocean's 11, but I was just feeling When Harry Met Sally. So I'm putting my vote down for When Harry Met Sally.
all right, Whitney, you could end this right now.
I think I've been waffling back and forth, but what I really gotta say is When Harry Met Sally, because I think it's the top of the rom-coms, and a rom-com's just a bigger mountain to
okay.
climb.
Good
You think
Right.
it was more influential kind of thing.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bigger genre, I think, than heist, even though I do agree that Ocean's 11 is top of the heist pile. But I
And I'm
still got to go with my bae. When
I
Harry
am
Met
so
Sally.
happy that you two took this choice away from me because now I can just say Ocean's 11 because it's like a great version of a heist movie. But I had no way to pick between these two movies. Like they're so great. Both so solid. Yeah, I think that I like your sort of both of your framings of like it's more meaningful, it has more to say, and also I like the idea that like, you know, the romantic comedy genre is way more varied, but this sort of solidified the formula. Also think that's a great point. I think that Ocean's 11 is just like it's sort of there was always a heist movie genre, but it kind of spawned the 2000s, 2010s heist movie. Like it was every criminal movie, whether it was serious or not, had some sort of tie to Ocean's 11.
And
So I feel confident with that too.
And any heist movie you see or episode of a TV show, you're like, oh, they're doing an Ocean's 11. Not like they're doing a heist.
Yeah.
They're doing an Ocean's 11. It's its own thing.
I can't wait for in our lives when we're all like 80 years old for the next Ocean's 11 with like Timothy Chalamet and like whoever, and it'll be very interesting and probably very disappointing.
Jacob Tremblay is the Matt Damon character.
Oh no.
Whitney, thank you so much for coming on today. Our winner in this crazy matchup is When Harry Met Sally, your favorite movie, but if people were listening and were like, oh my God, Whitney's just so funny, so cool, has great opinions, where can people find you? What are you up to these days? And also drop a Letterboxd handle if you're interested. People will, if you write reviews, I'm sure people will read them.
Oh, thank you. Let me look. What is my Letterboxd handle? So yeah, I'm Whitney Hawkins. I'm one of the founders of the Nova Comedy Collective. There is going to be an adventure improv that I'm hosting at the Rockwell on April 12th. That's an all ages improv show, but I'm also around all of Nova's events. My partner produces Nebula Night, which is our community night. Nick is in the Nova show, which is coming back in June. Yeah, we have workshops and stuff happening all the time. If you're into improv or any sort of comedic arts, please check us out. I'm also in a duo called Delilah Chaplin. We perform around all the time with my buddy Stacy Snyder. And my Letterboxed name, ID, handle, Letterboxed is Fluffy Chaplin, like Charlie Chaplin. My cat is named after Charlie Chaplin, Cece. Yeah, check me out. This has been so fun. You guys are so much fun. I love this podcast.
Yeah, anytime. You have an open invitation to come back. Do you have a suggestion for Patrick and I for what kind of matchup we should do next month? If not, we have a whole nother episode to record at some point where we decide. But like, do you have any ideas? Because we always take them.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even consider that.
We're all in on Harry Met Sally.
I was really tunnel visioned about it. But oh my gosh, what would I love to see? I want to see you guys talk about movies where animals or children are heavily featured. Because that's like the whole acting thing is like never work with animals and children. Yeah. So I want y'all to talk about movies where that was done well.
Patrick, I have just recently seen Babe and Babe 2 Pig in the City, and Babe 2 Pig in the City is a crazy movie. It is insane. It is dark as fuck, dude. It's like man, there's literally at one point a dog is being waterboarded. It's like, what is happening? What? Yeah, it's like the dog is hanging from this bridge and like his head is in the water and he's gonna drown if someone doesn't help him. And so Babe, being the great pig that he is, saves him. But man, it's dark, like whoa, but it's good. It's really
they really went far from him just like herding sheep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. But maybe we'll find a pairing to do that sort of thing.
Yeah,
kids and animals, or like animals and kids.
3 Men and a Baby. Look Who's Talking. One of those. That'd be fun.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Look Who's Talking was a childhood movie of mine.
So good. Also,
one of the greatest continuity errors in all of cinema, which is they're in like this there's like it's a highway or something, and the baby is in the middle of the highway, and all these cars are going by, and it cuts to the baby in the middle of the highway. And obviously they couldn't have a baby actor there because that's so dangerous. And so they have this really quick, like 3-second cut of a little person dressed up as the baby.
Oh my God.
Doing the stunt. And I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's really good. It's worth a watch just for that one bit. Anyway.
All right.
Oh my gosh. That's wild.
Yeah. What you could do in the 90s. Anyway, Everyone, this was Movie versus Movie. Patrick and I are so glad you listened. Whitney, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks for an episode of Culture Boys, where we will decide what we do next. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie.